Okay, this example, we wanted to verify if given condition is the factor of given polynomial functions. So we have f of x polynomial, and we wanted to know if x minus 3 is a factor of that f of x functions. So how can we tell? Well, we will know if we use the synthetic division and end up getting 0 for the remainder, then x minus 3 will be a factor. If we don't get 0, then it's not going to be a factor. So let's use the synthetic divisions. Copy all the leading coefficient, copy all the coefficients, so it will be 1, negative 1, negative 11 from square, positive 11, and 12, right? Dividing this with, you're dividing with x minus 3, so you're dividing with positive 3. When factor is given, you're going to use the opposite sign. When number is given, solution is given, then you just use the exact number given. You bring down 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Adding them will be 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Adding those 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Adding into 11 will be negative 4. Negative 4 times positive 3 is negative 12, where you get 0 for the remainder. Because you have 0, it means yes, factor. So x minus 3 is factor of your f of x. What about if you have x plus 2? Does x plus 2 also factor? Well, let's see. So we're going to replace it on a synthetic divisions, and if we get 0 for a remainder, it is going to be a factor. But we can also use evaluation method from example 3. So it means if we replace f of x with negative 2 this time, and it gives you 0 for the solutions on the evaluating, then it will be a factor. And this example, let's try that way. So you're going to replace all the x by negative 2. So negative 2 to the 4th exponent minus negative 2 cubed minus 11 times negative 2 square plus 11 times negative 2 plus 12. So either method works out long as you get 0 at the end, it will be the factor. If you get any other number than 0, then it's not going to be a factor. So this gives you positive 16, and you get negative 8, but minus negative 8 will be plus 8, adding 8. And then you get negative 2 square is 4. 4 times 11 is 44. Let's make sure that's subtracting. And then you have plus 11 times negative 2, so it will be, let's make sure we use one sign, so it will be negative 22. And then add 12. This gives you 33 positive minus 66 negative. Which this is not going to be 0, right? This obviously is going to be negative 33. So if it's not 0, then it's not a function. Not a factor. So next example, example 5 is asking us to factor f of x given that negative 5 is a 0 of f of x. So it means negative 5 will give you 0 when you're using synthetic divisions. It means negative 5 is one of your solutions. So x plus 5 will be the factor then, right? So let's see if we can find two others. using a synthetic division. So you have 3 from the cube, positive 25 from the square, 42 from linear, and negative 40. And if you're dividing this with negative 5, you get 0. That's what it's saying. Given that negative 5 is a 0 of f of x. So if you divide this with negative 5, you get 0 there. Let's see if that's true, right? So you're going to write 3 down. Negative 5 times 3, negative 15. And added into 25 is 10. Times negative 5 is negative 50. Added into 42, you get negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 5 is 40. Yep, you get 0. It means x plus 5 is one of your factor. So when you factor that out, you end up getting from this line your other factor that you have remained. Once you factor x plus 5, you get 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 remains. And if it's a factor all the way, you also need to factor quadratic. So how do we factor quadratic? Well, we can keep using synthetic divisions, or we use the method we already know to factor these quadratic equations. And when you factor this quadratic, you end up getting 3x minus 2 times x plus 4. So if you wanted to give all the factor of the solutions, you're going to have x plus 5, 3x minus 2, and x plus 4. So if they're asking to factor, which this is what they're asking you to do, right? So then this is going to be your solutions. What about if they say solve? Then you will say your x is going to be negative 5 and positive 2/3 and negative 4. Okay, so now we're going to look at one more just like it. We're going to factor f of x, this time given that negative 1 is a 0. So negative 1 is one of the factor. So let's start with synthetic division. So copy all these coefficients. 2 from the cube, 1 from the square, negative 37 from the linear, and negative 36 from constant. Dividing this with negative 1. And we know this is going to give you another 0 because that's what it say. Negative 1 is a 0, right? It means x plus 1 will be one of your factor, right? Let's make sure it does. So then you get 2 bring down. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. What? Oh, sorry, I pushed the next page. So going back, negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And when you add it into 1, it will be negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. And you add it, it will be negative 36 times negative 1 is positive 36. Yep, we get 0, right? So then one of the factor is x plus 1, right? That's we know. What will be your next factor? Well, your next factor comes from here, which is going to be 2x. You start with cube, so it will be square minus 1x minus 36. And we can find 2 more solutions. This is a cubic function. Cubic function have 3 solutions. And you have 1 factor, so you can find the other 2 from factoring these quadratic equations. And when you factor this quadratic, you get 2x minus 9 times x plus 4. So your complete factor is x plus 1, 2x minus 9, and x plus 4. We're going to look at one other problem. This time we're factoring, but given that fraction is a 0. So let me show you how this works when you are using fraction value to divide using synthetic divisions. It's just same thing. It's a little longer because you need to multiply and add fractions sometime, right? So you start with coefficients. Cube, you have 20. Square, you have 39. Linear, you have -3. Constant, -2. Dividing this with 1/4. Always first number, just use as it is. 1/4 of 20 is 5. And when you're adding it, it's 44. 1/4 of 44 is 11. And when you're adding it, it will be +8. 1/4 of 8 is 2, which gives you 0. And we know we will get 0 because that's what it's saying. 1/4 is 0. If you weren't able to get all this multiplication quick as I did, you basically have to do all these multiplications like you do 1/4 times 20, right? Where 4 goes into 25 times, right? Or you do 1/4 times 44, where 4 goes into 44 11 times, and so on, right? So you just basically need to do all those multiplications to get those numbers. This gives you 20x squared plus 44x plus 8. And you have common factor of 4. Then you're going to get 5x squared plus 11x plus 2. And when you factor that, you get x plus 2 and 5x plus 1. And don't forget 1/4 you had, right? You also had this 1/4 right there. This is one of your factor. So you need to put that back. So your solution, whole solutions, will be 1/4 will be subtract from the variable x to get 1/4 as the solutions. And then 4 will be the factor, and you have x plus 2 and 5x plus 1. So if you're looking for factor of f of x, that will be your solutions.